Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Reviews, where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Tague Wilkins titled And So She Goes. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen on YouTube, and we're going to listen through it from start till finish. We're going to hear what we think. By the way, after we listen through Tague's track, we're also going to be giving an overall score out of 10 based on a few different factors. But before we get to that, let's go. Let's do it. What do we got? It's quite loud off the bat, isn't it? I'm liking the sound of the banjos and the strings, though.
She pays no mind to my burial line, the same as she did before. She's got my hand and I got no choice, cause it ain't September no more. She knows my face after 16 days, I can barely remember her name. But our first night is still on my mind, it's enough to drive me insane.
I like how we go down to the da-da-da-dum, those vocal lines at the end. It's like we could have resolved to the major, but we decided not to. It allows things to remain as if something else is going to happen. I like the instrumentation in general. There's a little bit of a resonance in the upper ranges for the vocals, but aside from that, this is good.
Her imposition in her mother's kitchen gave all that we knew was right. She tries to love me, but I won't stop running to the ways that define my life. The rain on her skin cuts the couch again. I hate that she's worth my time. She just might know that her best friend's home, and he's never been a friend of mine. And so she goes, waiting through the day glow. Oh, shadow, there's more or less what we know. The dance floor that she's been before puts me in the neophyte lane. I want to show I'd rather be alone, but she'll never let me have my way. The room is loud, but I can't stop now. I leave my world behind. There's no good line for a last goodbye, just time enough to lose my mind.
So I suppose the song would be about sort of struggling with the loss of that special person in your life. It's there's a clear evocation of the sadness there.
And so she
Oh, major turn, nice.
so falls on my desire to let it go. All I know is how you're at odds with all I know.
I like the video. I'm wondering if this video is made by AI or something like that, just some of the artifacting and stuff like that, but it's kind of in a VHS format, which kind of does make it seem a little more sort of old school and nostalgic.
So she goes, waiting through the day glow. Oh, shadow, it's more or less what we know. So she goes, waiting
I think that there's a lot to appreciate with this, and I mean that sincerely. I'll just let it fade out. I'm going to figure out the scoring and I'll be back with the conclusion, but I want to say a lot of this is going to probably be really positive. There might be a couple of points of constructive criticism, but I'll try to keep it rounded. And welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Tague Wilkins titled And So She Goes. I've left the overall score down below here. I'll talk about parts of this as we go through, but feel free to have a look at that if you're interested in that. What do I think this track is about? I think that this track is about someone who had a very sort of like intimate connection to like a lady, and that they've left them now. They might have danced together, they might have shared some very sort of special moments together, but they've left and it's driving them insane, and they just are struggling to cope with that loss in their life. I think that's the concept of having to watch someone go can be especially painful. So I think that's what the track is about. The vocal performance was solid. I'm really happy with it. I think that for the most part it was really good. Most of the notes were exactly where they needed to be. I appreciated the upper register harmonizing over the lower and mid parts later on in the choruses as we went through there. I think there were some interesting, compelling melodies that were put forward with the singer, and I thought that they told the story in a way which made sense. There's a bit of extra kind of urgency and oomph in those higher register moments, which gave a sense of like trying to further sort of like let the listener know the intensity of those emotions that they're feeling, and ultimately I think there was a lot to appreciate there. I think the vocal technique was good, and again I don't feel like you could have necessarily done a lot to sort of improve this. The track itself at 3 minutes 49 is neatly within that 2 to 4 minute sweet spot there. I'm really satisfied with the amount of variety we had in the structure, because I think that scored quite highly. It's a situation where we had enough variety with the vocal line and the story that you needed the arrangement behind it to carry on with that. And I think that we had a mixture of some guitar and fiddle sort of string bits there mixed in with some bass and drums and stuff like that. And that was enough to carry us for a lot of the part. We didn't just have verses and choruses and stuff like that. We also had multiple solo sections. And so I have to show some love for that. For me, it's a situation where I think I'd need more time to sit with the song and really understand what necessitated those different solo sections, but at the same time I think that it was enough simply to allow the amount of time we had with the track to sort of really be quite special, and so I appreciate that effort in trying to make that the case. We did have varying chord progressions, which we didn't stick on one main motif for long. I really like the sound of the banjo on this track. I think there was a great clarity to it in the mix there. It was quite a tight mix in regards to like dynamics and stuff like that, which I'll talk about in the post-processing audio engineering sort of situation there. But I think that we could clearly play the instrument quite well. We were confident across it. We knew our notes and harmonies, and we knew how to pluck, and we knew how to get it to sync with the drums and every other sort of percussive element within the mix. It was a nice foil. It was a great sort of like accompaniment to what the vocals were doing there, and it was a great thing to start this track with as well. It gives a certain indication of the kind of music you're going to have there in a way that was very loyal to our endpoint. The strings, when we had them in there, had a great sense of character and charisma to them. They weren't just sitting there kind of lethargic with the whole notes there. They fluttered, and we had some solo sections with that as well, focusing on that more of as lead part rather than simply accompaniment, which is kind of dope. I appreciate the fact that we're not limiting ourselves to only having the vocals be the thing that tells the story. It can be good to have the strings and other elements step in as well to kind of, if nothing but take some of that off of the vocals to add more sort of diversity to the listening experience. The fact that we were able to get it to associate with the various chord progressions and stuff really neatly, and that it was quite articulate in the phrasing is a bonus. And I think that emotively it also suited, you kind of understood how the lyrics sort of corresponded to what was going on with the string parts and the banjo parts. But then I think we had a bass guitar as well, just to kind of lend a bit of credence to the low end, which is great. We were very comfortable in that range as well. It filled out things really neatly down there. And then the drum parts as well that we had, they were fantastic. We had a great sense of pace and sort of like movement with those. We didn't try to overshadow things. We pocketed when we needed to in regards to allowing some of the elements to be a little bit more percussive themselves. We had a great sense of energy that came from things being in unison with a really tight overall instrumental performance there that helped make the vocal experience even more interesting. We just had a great sense of synergy between the elements to not make it sort of little, too clerical. Those are a few of the main instruments I picked up. I think that the theme overall, it was wistful. There were majors and minors there, but we didn't resolve those vocal melodies in the verse sections in a way where we were trying to make things pleasant and sort of super comfortable for the listener. It was more like were trying to communicate that we're maybe still working stuff out. You know, there was a sense of potentially melancholy to it. I like the fact that we weren't too polarized with our tonalities, with those chord progressions or anything like that. I think that there was a sense of mystery and mystique to it because we weren't trying to be too blunt with it. It allowed you to kind of sit there and kind of listen to it gently cascade by you, and I think that that's a powerful thing. Like, the music simultaneously surrounded you, whilst also offering you the opportunity to sort of, there was complexity to the extra instrumental performance itself, but not too much that it was a detriment to the listening experience. I think that just leaves the studio recording, mixing, and mastering. Because what I mean by complexity to detriment to the listening experience, I mean that sometimes, especially if you're very competent on playing different instruments, you can occasionally do too much to kind of make it sort of seem like, oh, why are we doing this much of this thing? But I think that it's about coloration of a piece, and if it's deliberate and it sounds good, that's what matters. The studio recording, mixing, and mastering, though, I think the only thing I'd say is it may have been preferable to me personally as a music reviewer if there was a little bit more dynamic range to the recording. It feels as if some of the parts were just a little bit too tight in the mix, like we were trying to get a really loud track. And that's not me saying it's wrong, it's just me saying as a music reviewer personally, I think if there had been more dynamic range between the quiet and loud parts, you could have had a track where it could have really made the most of those quiet bits and then come up with a lot more kind of oomph in those chorus sections. Granted, we did have those loud vocals to add that bit of emphasis in the high end and stuff like that. I've got absolutely no issues with that. I'm just being transparent. I think given the dynamic range we had, it was great that we managed to balance the instruments in the way that we did. The instruments it was nice to have like the radio filter vocals or something like that in the interlude later on in the track as well. I thought we clearly paid attention to our post-production and tried to make it really cool. And I think that we did manage to do that for the most part. I understood why we made the decisions we did with like filtering and stuff like that. The music surrounded you in the stereo field, you know, that was nice and big in the headphones. And again, there weren't many resonant frequencies or anything like that. It's not like it's an EQing issue, it's just dynamics. But I also just want to note in the editing phase of this video that I remember that there was a bit of a higher range resonance with the vocals there, like a bit of a shrill frequency with some of the vocal parts, just due to a bit of sibilance, maybe about the 4 to 6 kilohertz region. I feel like for future recordings, if we were to kind of notch that down a little bit, we could just reduce that kind of tone there, and that would really even the vocals out. Yeah, it was nice and loud without pumping. Well, there was a little bit of pumping, but not to a point where it's a detriment. But, you know, it was nice. This is a solid track from Tague Wilkins titled And So She Goes, which I think got an overall score of 7.7 out of 10, which is not bad. Not a bad score at all. And hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show us some love via the various social medias and the YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.